Unemployment down, interest rates up.
The U.S. economy is in this strange push-pull relationship right now.
With growing concerns over a possible recession, the U.S. economy finds itself in an unprecedented position.
We've never had a situation quite like this.
Tonight, we're taking a deeper look to help you make sense of what's going on.
Gaming in secrecy.
They just pop up, unregulated.
Undercover video from inside these hidden casinos, catching the attention of Colorado's top gaming official.
The biggest concern, I think, they are starting to expand.
Denver 7 investigates the challenges shutting down these so-called adult gaming arcades.
It's a statewide problem.
And a new lawsuit filed against the Episcopal Diocese of Colorado. Why this could be just the first of what's to come.
Colorado's June jobs report is out. State labor officials say unemployment fell a tenth of a point to 3.4%, the lowest since the start of the pandemic and better than most of the rest of the country. The national unemployment rate is 3.6%.
And while it sounds great that most Coloradans are employed, when you add to the mix rising interest rates, you're paying more interest on your credit cards, your mortgage, your car loans.
And then inflation, of course, making everything else more expensive. So it can be hard to make sense of our economy. A complex situation, and Denver 7's Rob Harris walks us through it.
We have a lot of headlines flying at us about the economy, and they can oftentimes be at odds with each other. On the one hand, Colorado's latest jobs report looks good, and that's a good sign for our economy. But on the other hand, inflation still remains pretty high, and the Federal Reserve is looking at raising interest rates even higher to try to calm it down. And that could be a bad sign for our economy.
If we do enter a recession, or we're in one already, it will be one unlike any we've experienced in recent cycles.
This is Caleb Silver, editor-in-chief for Investopedia. He acknowledges it can be hard to sift through the noise of the headlines and get a good grasp of what's going on in our pandemic-affected economy.
Where we're facing rising inflation up above 9%, where everything from food and energy to rent keeps rising, but the jobs market, the labor market remains very strong, and consumers are hanging in there. We've never had a situation quite like this, where demand remains very, very strong while prices remain sky high. It's a really interesting dynamic.
That interesting dynamic was on full display out on 16th Street Mall, where there were plenty of people shopping and eating.
I think I'm excited that we survived all of that, and we don't feel affected by it.
But there was also anxiety for what could lay down the road.
I've lost confidence. I was in the stock market a couple of years ago, and I'm completely out. And I'm a retired guy, so I have to live with that money.
I'm not spending any money. We're going to do things that we already had planning to do, but we're not buying cars.
As it turns out, this could all be the most important sign, because there's one metric that Investopedia pays attention to above the rest for economic outlook: consumer spending. And there are signs it could be slowing down.
If consumers start to pull back and start to tighten their belts because they either fear a recession or they feel that they're already in one personally, then you're going to see businesses start to rein in spending as well, which would mean less hiring, which would mean less expansion, and that could really accelerate a recession.
For Denver 7, I'm Rob Harris.
And so what should we do as we watch these economic figures? Well, Silver suggests having enough extra cash on hand to cover at least 6 months worth of expenses and paying down any credit card debt you have as interest rates keep rising.
Well, Denver 7 is committed to 360 in-depth reporting on the economy. We want to hear what's impacting you and your family, your business. Is it monthly housing costs? Is it rising grocery prices, childcare? And maybe if you found a way to stretch your dollar, we would love to hear about that. Email us, 360@thedenverchannel.com. We read every single email you send.
Let's talk about the weather now. Another hot day across Colorado. Temps in Metro Denver once again into the high 90s.
A heat advisory expired earlier this evening, but we've got another hot one in store for tomorrow, and that's why we have Mike Nelson here tonight. Mike?
All right, take a look at these today. 100-degree temperatures out on the eastern plains, 103 at Burlington, 104 at La Junta, out west, 103 at Grand Junction. We just missed the century mark here in the Denver area, but hit it in Fort Collins and Greeley. Right now, it's still a really warm night out there. 82 degrees in Denver, 81 at Fort Collins, and still 91 degrees at Grand Junction. Just a few scattered little showers, not enough to really cool anything off. But to the northwest of us, There's a cold front, and that is heading our way. It's going to make a big change in the weather as we go through the weekend. Conditions are going to start to cool off. One more really hot day coming up, and then we'll see cooler weather coming in, not just for one day, but maybe for one whole week. I'll have the details in about 15 minutes.
Thank you, Mike. And with highs tomorrow expected to reach near triple digits again, all Denver rec centers will operate as cooling stations during regular hours. Several city libraries will also be available to help people escape the heat, and that's free of charge.
And in Boulder today, a group of volunteers braved the heat to help find ways to reduce the impact of these extreme temperatures. By car, bike, and foot, these volunteers are collecting data to figure out where hot and dry weather pose the greatest risks.
People are essentially going to be taking these sensors that we got from NOAA and Kappa Strategies, who helped us organize this event, and driving around different pre-designated routes around the city of Boulder, collecting heat temperature data, seeing where that heat's being distributed, target these hot areas, and implement nature-based climate solutions, things like tree planting and pollinator gardens to try and cool down those areas.
This is part of a study by the National Weather Service. It's going to take about 6 to 8 weeks to process the data before the results are published.
The man Denver police say flashed a gun at officers, causing them to fire near a crowd in lower downtown, has now been charged. The charges against Jordan Waddy include 3 counts of possession of a weapon by a previous offender and 1 count of third-degree assault. 3 officers fired at Waddy early Sunday morning near 20th and Larimer. 6 bystanders were injured as a result of the shooting. Those 3 officers are on leave while this shooting is investigated.
Boulder police are looking for witnesses to a violent attack on Central Park bike path. Police say a couple from out of state walking on the path Thursday afternoon when James Moore attacked the 75-year-old woman unprovoked. Police say Moore grabbed the woman's hair and threw her to the ground. A passerby pulled Moore off the victim and detained him until police arrived. Moore was taken to the hospital for a medical hold, expected to be charged, though, with assault. And witnesses who saw the attack can reach out to Boulder Police or the Northern Colorado Crime Stoppers.
A man has filed a lawsuit against the Episcopal Diocese of Colorado, alleging a priest sexually abused him as a teenager.
This lawsuit may be the first of its kind since a new law took effect this year, giving victims more time to file civil claims. Denver 7's Jessica Porter joins us in the studio with details. Jess?
Shannon, and the new law was intended to provide reform to child sexual abuse laws, opening a new window for survivors to seek justice. Today, the attorneys of a Denver man wanting anonymity filed a lawsuit alleging priest Jerry McKenzie sexually abused him starting in 1995 when he was 16 years old. The victim says the abuse lasted several years and happened at the St. Michael and All Angels Church in Denver, Camp Ilium, and a cabin near Nederland. Before this law, victims had just 6 years after turning 18 to file a lawsuit.
These lawsuits are filed as a symbol of taking back his power, of reclaiming and vanquishing the shame that he has felt and the embarrassment that he has felt. And this is ultimately about accountability for him and obtaining a measure of justice that he has waited very, very long for, especially now that he's finding out how many opportunities there were for him to have been protected.
And the victim tells attorneys McKenzie victimized others. The church says McKenzie was forced to resign after different allegations of sexual misconduct in the year 2000. But there is little information or even a photo of McKenzie. The new law took effect in January and allows victims of sexual misconduct after 1960 a window to file a lawsuit by 2025. That law also removed the statute of limitations on abuse claims going forward. Ann?
Thank you, Jessica. Mesa County Clerk Tina Peters is out of jail tonight after turning herself in. A warrant for Peters' arrest was issued Thursday for violating terms of her bond by contacting Mesa County's designated elections official. Peters turned herself in last night to the Pitkin County Jail, and she was released an hour later after posting bond. Peters was removed as an election official after allegedly tampering with election equipment. Earlier this month, she also violated her bond by traveling out of state.
An Erie man is pleading guilty to entering the U.S. Capitol during the insurrection. Logan Grover will be sentenced in December. He's looking at up to 6 months in federal prison, followed by 5 years probation. As part of a plea deal, Grover has agreed to be interviewed by police about the events surrounding January 6th.
And a former advisor under President Trump has been convicted of contempt for defying a subpoena from lawmakers investigating the insurrection. Steve Bannon was charged with refusing to appear for a deposition and for refusing to provide the House Select Committee with documents. Lawmakers wanted Bannon to testify over his involvement in efforts to overturn the 2020 election. Bannon faces up to 2 years in federal prison, and his lawyer says they will appeal.
Possibly skirting state law.
I guess you could say it's kind of like casinos.
Adult gaming arcades allowing Coloradans to secretly cash in.
I can cash out for $500 every day.
Tonight, Colorado leaders aiming to shut down some of these locations.
It's not a safe, regulated, legal market. Get the illegal games out.
Broncos training camp just days away. Hall of Famer Steve Atwater tells us what he's most looking forward to in this week's Broncos Minute.
We finally have some relief on the way. I'll let you know when this cold front is going to arrive.